Good morning, dear guests and the online audience. Our Indian meeting with the customers and the partners of the National Bank. In second, we'll start to talk about the main issue, the new vision of the strategy for development of the financial sector of Ukraine, which the National Bank of Ukraine, jointly with the Minister of Finance, the Deposit Guarantee Fund, and the National Commission on the Securities and Exchange, and also the National Commission prepared and are guided in the strategy of the development of financial sector of Ukraine through 2025. For the opening, we invited the governor of the National Bank, Mr. Yakov Smali. Dear Mr. Prime Minister, dear guests, with great pleasure, I open the third annual meeting of the National Bank of Ukraine with the partners and customers. This is now to be more transparent and be accountable to the society. It's always possible to compare what we planned to do at the beginning and what we actually managed to accomplish. This time it's not just an event to report about the activities of the NBU and the plans for the future. There is interesting the new strategy through 2025. Less than half an hour, we'll sign jointly with the Minister of Finance, head of the Securities and Exchange Commission, National Commission on the Financial Services, and Deposit Guarantee Fund. Jointly with the colleague, we worked for about half a year on the development of this strategy, learning the experience from other countries, negotiations with the regulators, planning consultations with the participants of the financial sector, and we are.
And we tried to do it in a most transparent way. We believe that that's the only possibility that our plans will correspond and will be performed and delivered. And this will be not a piece of paper, but full-fledged vision, and we are going to deliver this vision. And we have the necessary experience, and we have successful experience. Last 5 years, we delivered the comprehensive action plan until 2020, and together with financial regulatory bodies, and we adopted very bold decisions. So to assess our results, we actually looked into the program of the comprehensive program, and almost 2/3 are accomplished. Not everything has been accomplished. Some activities were planned, and we planned to accomplish it after 2020, and we are continuing this work. Some delays happened, but we are going to implement it into reality. And strategy of Ukrainian financial sector development until 2025. And this strategy is a logical development of our previous reforms. Can we accomplish better results? I can respond to you. Yeah. But the conditions we had in financial market, we have pretty good results. We had ideal storm, as economists say, in economy, war in the country, and we were close to bankruptcy. And we have to be satisfied with what we have accomplished, and we have accomplished a lot. Let's talk about the central bank. Central bank is technocratic institution. We are independent, and we adopting decisions on the basis of analysis and facts. We introduced internal transformation of central bank, and we are the model for many other banks. And we are not only getting experience from other countries, but we are consulting our colleagues as well. And we are targeting inflation and not the exchange rate. And the exchange rate shows the market realities. And we are not getting rid or burning our foreign exchange reserves. Solvent banks, profitable banks, are ready to respond to economic shocks, and these banks are safe to the customers. We engaged in hard currency liberalization. We have amended legislation as old as 1990s, and now it's not possible to make a bank bankrupt without criminal case. And we are following the road of civilized markets. We improve the corporate governance of the state-owned banks. And there are governing bodies and supervisory bodies. And we are having risk-oriented supervision of the banks. And we are responding in the proactive way and not getting rid of fires. Actually, we have accomplished much more. I would like to thank for all these accomplishments to our personnel, our experts, international partners. I would like to thank International Monetary Fund. They helped us not only financially, but share their knowledge and skills. And I would like to thank USAID, World Bank, and other central banks as well. But let's go back to 2025 strategy. I am pretty happy that together with the government and other regulatory body, we have common vision how to make sure that our financial services are quality services, safe and secure, and Ukrainians are comfortable with using the services. And everybody knows that some people, some agencies are trying to pull in different directions, but this is not our choice. Implementation of 2025 strategy, this is the way to transparent financial sector, and we have clear plan for the next 5 years. So everything have to be expected, not unexpected. We are talking about our 5-year plans in advance. What we want to accomplish, we have 5 objectives. Financial development have to be sustainable and developed in sustainable way. We have all the causing factors to develop our economy, and this means that our citizens have to be confident about our future. Financial stability and sustainability. Our financial system and banking system have to be stable and reliable, have to respond and have to be ready to external shocks. And this is the factor that is very important for financial. This is like the whole system that helps the whole body to develop, and we want to be healthy, and we want to be reliable within this financial system, not only a banking establishment, but non-banking establishments as well. All customers have to be sure they will get quality services, and this will happen when the standards will be transparent, understandable, and plain field for everybody, same rules for everybody. And I'll tell you, I'll promise you that we are not going to tolerate improper behavior in this. And our financial services will be online services. You can use smartphone, laptop, or whatever. And you will get financial services, quality financial services. We want to make sure that Ukrainian financial services have to comply with European standards. And this will make our customers very confident. And this is our obligation in accordance with the agreement with the EU. And we want to integrate into EU, and we want to improve trust to financial markets. There are different causing factors that some Ukrainians are not always ready to become customers of pension funds, banks, or insurance companies. This is due to financial crises that happened and financial losses that happened in the past. And our task is to make sure that we are protecting consumers of financial sectors in real life. And this will be our input into rehabilitation of trust into the state. And we believe that by 2025, it will be much easier to do business in Ukraine, will attract financial investments, financial services will be reliable and transparent. And other services have to be provided. And the strategy for 20 until 2025 and the future development of financial sector and future development of Ukrainian economy. If you look into this document, this also incorporates the roadmap of financial amendments and changes. And the National Bank have developed the plan for this year. We have reported about our activities in the previous year and as well reported about the strategy until 2025 and the strategy of the National Bank, and this published on the website of the National Bank. And our guests are having hard copies of this plan and will definitely accomplish our objectives in case we'll deliver on time, and we'll understand why we are doing it. And we have our guest, honorary guest, Prime Minister Alexei Yancharuk. Floor is yours. Good morning. First of all, I am deeply honored to attend this event. Thank you very much for inviting me. National Bank is a reliable partner for Ukrainian government, not only when we are drafting our strategy, but when we are discussing pretty clear and concrete steps to implement it into real life. I'll be pretty brief and I'll talk bottom line. Our assessment of macroeconomic situation is very facilitating for development of our economy. We have everything what is needed to grow speedily within a couple of years. And the trends that we are facing are our reserves, hard currency reserves are increasing, and in hard currency we are borrowing at a rate at the lowest rate in the history of Ukraine. In Ukrainian hryvnia, it's about 2 times cheaper. The borrowing is 2 times cheaper when we are talking about interest rate in comparison with the last year. And people starting believing in the Ukraine. But we need to figure out our internal problems. First of all, corruption. Together, we have to overcome corruption. And Ukrainian government and National Bank, we are doing it on daily basis. We are cleaning markets and we'll make sure that corruption will cease to exist in our country. Definitely there is a response to such policy. But we are absolutely sure that the way that we are going to discuss today, this is the right way, and we are going to follow this way, this road. And when we are talking about today's presentation, about today's discussion, professional discussion, I can tell you this is the best response to the populace, that they say no plan, that people don't understand that they are doing. No, it's pretty clear. We have to get rid of corrupt institutions. We have to reduce the impact of the government and the state. We have to stop distorting competition in the market. And these are concrete and specific things. We have to do it on daily basis. And we have understanding how to do it. Within the last 2 months, we more than 500 enterprises are now allowed and now candidates for privatization. This is not about selling the country out. But this is to make sure that we have more effective and efficient owners, but not the enterprises and entities that are governed by the judges or prosecutors, whatever. We have priorities in our work. When we are talking about financial sector, we have common position with the National Bank. We have two priorities. The first priority is we need to provide pretty cheap resources to the economy and pretty quickly. And this is the story consisting of two parts. We need to have our own cheap resources. I was mentioning already that borrowing is becoming cheaper and cheaper, and we want to make sure that it will be even cheaper in the future. But definitely, Ukraine is getting better when we are talking about international ratings. And second part, to reduce risks when we are talking about financial institutions and uh, the non-performing loans. We are not able to afford ourselves. We need to have normal justice system, and our team have delivered a lot of work. In a comprehensive way, we don't have raiders activities. So we have a pretty stable situation with government registers. We have to respond within 24 hours to every rider's attack. It's it's already working. You can check it out. On daily basis, our executive authorities and bailiff are doing a better and better job, and court decisions are implemented into realities. And you can actually check it out and make sure about it. But definitely, there is one more aspect. Loans are needed right now, not in some future. So February 1st, we'll start presidential program, cheap loans at a lower interest rate. These are loans for small businesses, for people who want to start their business. We have to provide these people loans at a lower interest rate. And this year, the definitely mortgage loans will be cheaper. I am not going to mention our figures about the fall, but last year we were talking about mortgage loans with the interest rate 11, 12%, and cheaper loans this is priority number one for the government at a lower interest rate. And very important, maybe important as well, to, to have access to financial services. A lot of our citizens are not part of the banking system. They don't understand what financial services are about. We need to expand this market. We have to be inclusive. We have to incorporate more and more people into this system. And there are many components, and quality of the mobile and cell phone connection and whatever. But what I want to share with you, dear Ukrainians and dear friends, we understand pretty well what have to be done. We have a plan. And about this plan, we are going to talk about very much in detail, in a very professional manner. And we are ready to respond to very sophisticated challenges that will happen in the next 2 years. Let's do it together. Let's overcome it together. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. And now I would like to give the floor one of the persons who signed the strategy, Minister of Finance of Ukraine, Oksana Markarova. Dear colleagues, dear friends, in the Ministry of Finance, we have pretty clear understanding that to accomplish something, you need two things. You have to have action plan and strategy, and a team that think alike. And we have two financial spheres. And actually, the Ministry of Finance, we have demonstrated that we can accomplish results. First is our strategy to reform public finances. For the first time, 4 years ago, our objective is to implement 3-year budget planning. And already 1 year, we are following our first 3-year budget declaration 2020-2023, and Cabinet of Ministers and Minister of Finance is working very actively in this respect. And one more aspect that is pretty close to financial market is our strategy to manage our debt. And we have adopted this strategy. It never existed before. And now we are more understandable to investors. And as Prime Minister just mentioned, that at the end of the year, the borrowing is the cheapest in euro, 2.2 in euro, the lowest in the history of Ukraine, the lowest in dollars, 3.4% interest rate, and the first auction sales list this year, it's less than 10% interest rate when we are talking about Ukrainian currency, Ukrainian hryvnia. We have clear strategy and action plan, and definitely we are getting the results that are positive results, not only for regulatory bodies in financial sector, not only for financial system, but for Ukrainian economy in general. Our debt strategy and budget policy sounds like Ministry of Finance task, but other agencies won't be able to accomplish this in case we are not going to work together.
At the beginning of the operation of our government back in August, 7% annual growth and 40% over years. This is a very ambitious dream. There were lots of comments that it would not be possible to achieve, but we see that we are on that path to reach this ambitious goal. And in order to achieve that, we should work together. The plans we're going to discuss today, we already work on and would continue. And I would like to thank to the teams of the National Bank, Ministry of Finance, and every financial regulator, Deposit Guarantee Fund, because the interim stage is the outcome of the great work of every team, which basically made an input of their heart and soul to produce the roadmap which are going to follow. And also you'll see that in this action plan, which is also an ambitious one, there is nothing which cannot be achieved if we as professionals work together. We should do our job. And this union, we have it in place. Every financial regulator, the cabinet of ministers, the parliament, the presidential office, they voted basically for every reform, which we discussed for several years in a row. So this event today is an interim stage, but this is something where we come to the actual implementation. And among the financial regulators, I see also the faces who are ready to implement. So I would like to welcome everyone with this event and encourage you to do the job. Thank you, Mrs. Minister. Now, before we go for the actual signing of the strategy 2025, we have a small video which actually represents or articulates the goals of the strategy. the development strategy of the financial sector through 2025, financial stability, the protection of the rights of the creditors and investors, increase of corporate governance role, social and ecosystem, reduce of the share of the shadow economy, macroeconomic development, fiscal policy, coordination between the Ministry of Finance and the Central Bank, introduction of the second level of the pension system, support for small and medium enterprises, mortgage lending, financial inclusion, and introduction of the market behavior of the financial institution, financial literacy improvement, protection of the consumer rights, cashless transaction, deposit guarantees, and development of the financial markets, deregulation of non-bank financial institutions, modernization of the operation of the exchanges, introduction of new financial instruments, development of the securities market, cryptocurrency, comprehensive program, the monitoring of the market, innovative development, and remote banking, crowdfunding and venture capital, new technologies for the payments, access to public registries, cloud technologies. This is the development strategy through 2025. It's a great pleasure to admit that the strategy was drafted by the people, most of whom are here. This was a transparent process that really inspires, because this is us, this is transparent, this is clear, and our goals are agreed. So for the signing of the strategy, and we invite to this stage the Minister of Finance, Oksana Markarova, the Governor of the National Bank, Sir Yakov Smoley, the head of the National Communities and Securities and Exchange, Mr. Timur Hramayev, the member of the National Commission on the Regulation of the Financial Services, Mr. Denis Yastreb, and the Executive Director of the Deposit Guarantee Fund, Svetlana Rekrut. Dear colleagues, I invite you to put your signature under the strategy 2025. Dear colleagues, this is a really outstanding moment. A round of applause from the audience, and invite you for the joint picture. Invite every signee with the copies of the strategy. And look at our cameraman, please. And now we're about to start our panel discussion. Ms. Markara, Ramaev, Ms. Recker, I invite you to take your seats. On behalf of the National Bank, I invite the First Deputy Governor, Ms. Katerina Rashkova. The moderator for this panel discussion will have the partner from CMC, Cameron Marquez, Igor Olahov. I would like to welcome you, dear colleagues. Now we're about to start from the protocol part to more of the working session, working part of our meeting. We'll discuss basically what we'll see in our strategy 2025 in the upcoming 5 years. And I would like to highlight some organizational issues before we start the discussion itself. First of all, as you saw from the previous presentations, this strategy sets us very ambitious goals for our regulators. And what's really important, it sets up the mechanism which the regulators will use to interact among themselves to implement those ambitious goals. We know that there was a comprehensive program in place for the development of the financial market of Ukraine. Lots of goals were achieved, and there are still some of the problems and challenges which we were not able to achieve. And the current discussion will try with the participants to discuss why some of the goals were not able to achieve and why there are new ones in their new ambitious strategy. First of all, I would like to introduce the panelists of the discussion, the Minister of Finance, Oksana Markarova, Katerina Raskova, First Deputy Governor at the National Bank of Ukraine, Timur Khramay, the head of the National Securities and Exchange Commission, Denis Yastreb, the member of the Commission, the National Commission of the Financial Services, and Svetlana Record, the Executive Director of the Deposit Guarantee Fund for the Individuals. Also, today we have an opportunity to hear the audience, to make our discussion an interactive one through the application Slido. Everyone from you can ask your question to the panelists, and respectfully, if those questions are to specific point to the discussion, we'll consider them and would respond to make our discussion more interactive. So please keep that in mind. Join at slido.com to follow what happens at this stage, and I encourage you to ask the questions. As a moderator, I will see them online and will forward them to the panelists. Also, today, the question in front of every participant of this event, the questionnaire which we run thanks to Menzies system, and we have two questions basically. During the current discussion, everyone from you, from the audience, can respond, and we'll have the round of the analysis at the end of the discussion to see whether the audience accepts the strategy itself. So the two questions are, which is the main challenge for Ukrainian economy for 2020? Question number one. And we suggest four options. The decrease of the world economy's growth, Minsk agreement and their implementation. The third one, peak payments on government debts, and the fourth, lack of the rule of law for the business community. The second question, we would appreciate you providing your response. What's your opinion would to improve landing in Ukraine, either judicial reform or executive reform, NBU policy and accounting rate fluctuation, the NPLs, and the credit worthiness of the borrowers. So let's keep this questionnaire in mind, and we'll announce the results at the end of the discussion. Now we'd like to basically launch the discussion and provide 5 minutes to every panelist on the role of every regulator plays within the strategy 2025. Try to be brief. I know that the document is huge, ambitious, has lots of different goals, reference to the roadmap and so on. But I give you 5 minutes to highlight the key priorities of the strategy. So with great pleasure, I invite Oksana Markarova for the first interaction. Thank you very much. I'll try to be very brief to reserve more time for the discussion. The Ministry of Finance has a very clear role. So with this strategy, we for macro stability achievement based on that to accelerate economic growth. This is not a different task. This is an additional task which is based on the first one. So our role from the budget policy, fiscal policy is very important. From one hand, to keep the macroeconomics and public finance should become more healthy to reduce the deficit. This is our goal, which still stays with us. We'll move forward to reduce the deficits of the public budget. We'll also see that the key goal to control the debt. It's less than 50% to GDP. But those questions, those issues, we should not ask whether we have peak or non-peak payments. Is that the normally operating economies and public finance, when the debt management happens professionally with long-term perspective, this is just a technical issue which requires professional work. And it's not only Ministry of Finance which would deal with that. We would deal with the strategy and policy. We'll have the professional debt agency which would deal with technical debt management. This is the best European practice. Whatever needs good debt policy to reduce the deficit, to with the full-scale overview of the expenses. This is very important with midterm finance. And I'm sure that this year, unlike from the previous cases, the cabinet minister would approve the budget declaration. Moreover, will approve it with the parliament, and that provides Ukraine and international business with clear guidelines for 3 upcoming years with business in budget indicators. So Ukrainian and international business. My dream is that instead of asking the question, what happens with your relationship with IMF, they would go for the budget declaration to have it the guidelines for the upcoming 3 years, to have it a key document. Fiscal and budget policy, but to accelerate economic growth is not sufficient to have the fiscal and budget policy. So from this week, we launch, and next week we'll have the first session of the working group to work on the tax reform. That was announced last year. The working group will do the diagnostics, quick diagnostic. We didn't do that since 2015, the comprehensive diagnostic, to do the current analysis, where we are with our competitive countries for the investments, for the labor force, for the markets, and we'll together with business association will approach the business with the proposals on the tax reform, which would be more favorable for the development of business. On the financial markets and the state banking sector, this is a part of our strategy on state-owned banking. We'll make it more ambitious. I may say that now. We want to reduce the share of the state in this sector. We want to find efficient owners or co-partners, international co-partners for our state-owned banks, and this year would be the year when we are efficient to regulate the legacy problems in our state-owned banks. On the non-bank financial sector, so speaking of the previous strategy, we achieved the plot to stabilize the bank and the public sector, but this current strategy would be the second one, would be successful if we provide a significant push for the development of the non-bank financial sector and our capital market. This is our home task, and the Ministry of Finance would pay significant attention. I'm not going to take much of your time of all the elements. We'll have several discussions like this, but our task, as we see, to support, on one hand, the macroeconomic stability, to ensure proper finance, execution of the budget, proper budget planning for 3 years, and what we have in our toolkit to accelerate the economic, you'll see that us doing that. Thank you, Oksana. Katerina, how the National Bank, probably the leader among the financial sector regulator, basically was the initiator from the very beginning of the comprehensive program of the reform of the financial sector. Your vision on future steps.
When we are talking about implementation of financial strategy, and good morning, everybody. And actually, we have a very good partnership relationship with our colleagues, with the Ministry of Finance, with the government. So we can say who is the leader. Everybody is a leader in some particular sector. And we have experience to work together to implement strategic program, because previous 5 years we worked in accordance with the strategy until 2020. We accomplished some tasks, something we haven't accomplished, but we have coordinated a lot. And our task was to make sure that we have macro-financial sustainability and stability, inflation targeting. Now we have much more healthy banking system, and we have revolution in hard currency regulations. And all these steps that we made, and our colleagues will talk about their own regulatory body. The objective was the following: to create the basis and foundation for development of the economy, because financial sector is the secondary sector when we are talking about real economy, and the prospects of financial sector are pretty clear, dependent when we are talking about development of the economy, and development of the economy requires support from financial sector. So we created the foundation, and now we are shifting our objectives, not just only to stabilize, but to develop as well. And we understand it pretty well. And these plans reflected and specified in our uh, program and strategy until 2025. What is additional in this uh, program? Implementation of the law on it. In the middle of the year, National Bank will become a regulatory body for non-bank institutions. And our task is to create proportional and proper conditions for development of all financial institutions for purposes of making sure we have financial inclusion. We are working with insurance companies, with leasing companies, not waiting even when these functions will be officially our functions. And we will specify more in detail because we have ideas. We want to initiate it already together, not waiting for the middle of the year. And this is the task of all the regulatory bodies, including the government, to create proper conditions for business development. And this is our main objective until 2025. Thank you. Thank you, Katerina. Timur, what is your vision when we are talking for the period, when we are talking about your um, Securities Commission? And there are some questions on Linda. And what is your vision? Do you see the vision like the mega regulatory body, establishing such body? First of all, we are pretty optimistic. When we started in 2015, conditions were very much different. And our task and objective was to make sure that we are stable and to solve the arising problems at that period of time. And now conditions are entirely different. And we have excellent audience here. In 2015, we had no such start in 2015. And what we managed to understand, what kind of tasks we are facing to make sure we have full-fledged financial market in Ukraine. Unfortunately, last 5 years we were solving problems and not developing fully. Our priority is developing capital market, and our capital market was kind of having a negative value added. Without capital market, it's not possible to develop in stable and sustainable way. And that's something that we are going to focus on, and we know how to accomplish it. And we don't want to create any disbalances, and we don't want to have any obstacles in this. About mega regulatory body, we have not established mega regulatory body. There will be two regulatory bodies: monetary regulation and financial markets regulations. This will be central bank and uh, Securities Commission and tasks. And we are expecting the law is going to be passed on derivatives, and in the commodities market, Ukraine is having pretty serious positions. So it's not about mega regulations, but we need quality regulation, smart regulation that will comply and correspond to our tasks that we are facing today. We have pretty outdated financial market. Let's be honest about it. Not that archaic, not that outdated. I disagree with that. I am comparing banking sector with other countries, and we are talking and discussing with central banks. We are not having outdated. So don't. So banking people should not say this about our banking people. Only good things. When we are talking about development of financial markets, we are 115, 120, 117. We want to be not in top 100, but at least in top 50 countries with the strong financial sector. 50% of finances is non-bank financial institutions. I don't want to say anything bad about banking people. So what we are going to focus our attention, we want to focus our attention when we are dealing with new financial tools and instruments, financial intermediaries, financial infrastructure to comply with the highest international standards. And what is very important, that we financial market have to help to accumulate financial resources, not to redistribute it, but to make sure that we accumulate in it. And second level of the pension reform. Last 5 years, we were dreaming about second level of in accumulating just retirement benefits, and definitely we have to comply with international standards when we are talking about non-bank regulations. Our Securities Commission that is supposed to take care of financial intermediaries, our Securities Commission, we are not able to make sure that financial intermediaries are fully responsible, as well as it is happens in EU and globally. So briefly, that's it, but I'm grateful for your questions. Thank you, Timur. Denis, in reality, I have pretty easy job to do. I am reading these questions. This law on split actually liquidates financial services commission and how it will affect financial market. Good afternoon. It's easy question and very difficult question. Probably it's the name is changing. Now we are actively implementing this split project. We are communicating with the regulatory bodies and we are explaining how we are doing regulations, how processes are happening. We are sharing our knowledge. But what will change? The name will be changing. And the reforms that have been initiated and created some grounds for sustainable development of non-bank financial services. We'll have further development of this sector, and as a result of implementation of split project, the regulatory bodies will regulate it in the future and will get only positive outcome and positive and quality personnel resources, HR resources, and quality markets that are under development. I'm talking about non-bank financial sector. So this is not liquidation, this is evolution. And together we are trying to accomplish it. When we are talking about the role and the top priorities, what we want to accomplish in the future, how to help regulatory bodies, and the most important are two issues. First of all, top priority to consumer. That's the final beneficiary that will get the quality services. And in 5 years from now, what we want to have, we want to have a person that is very much sophisticated and knows a lot about it. And we want to update and improve literacy of consumers, financial literacy, and to make sure that we are protecting the rights of the consumers. And one more aspect, it's about financial institutions. These are service providers that work in sustainable legal situation, and this should be financial attractive institution that will provide the whole economy the necessary financial resources and the best services that consumers want to get. And priority number 3, to finalize the split project and working every day. We are not going to stop even after July 1st. Thank you. Thank you, Denis. Svetlana, what is your vision of the deposit guarantee fund strategy? Maybe 2025 everything will be very cool and excellent, and this deposit guarantee fund will do. What will happen in case institution court will make sure that the law on deposit guarantee fund won't be effective anymore? I have a dream that we, in 2025, we are going to be performing only technical services. Everything is cool in the country, and everything is good in financial sector, and the deposit guarantee fund is delivering the main task to protect the depositors' rights, and we are engaged in financial literacy activities and the principles that are specified in EU directives. But this is a dream, and I just wanted to say a few words about our status quo as of today. And what is our vision about developing in a couple of years? Previous year and this year, this will be the year to finalize overcoming banking crisis. In 2019, we have closed 40 banks. They are not part of the registers of the legal entities. And this year, we will finalize the work with remaining 50 banks. As of today, 90 billion hryvnia have been paid to of the depositors of the insolvent banks, and we are talking about 20 million people, and 41 billion hryvnia have been returned to repay to the state and paying back to the National Bank and Ministry of Finance. So taking into account that we are finalizing the overcoming the crisis situation, and what is our future development? The most important is to reform the deposit guarantee system in accordance with EU directive. EU directive actually envisages that we need to have proactive approach, not kind of stopping fires that we used to do. And we are going to change our approach to cooperation with the banks, and we are becoming full-fledged living member of the banking system to prevent the crises that happened in the past. And then second stage, to restructure the debt to the Ministry of Finance. Now it's 49 billion hryvnia and 67 billion hryvnia, and this is the interest rate that Deposit Guarantee Fund have to pay. Why it is important? Because only financially sustainable and stable Deposit Guarantee Fund on the basis of European directives, these are the guarantees and the foundation for the stable financial system. One of the top priorities is financial literacy. And 2 months ago, we started a large-scale 3-year project to upgrade the level of financial literacy of the population. This is very important to prevent the crisis in the future years. And the most important in this field is partnership with regulatory bodies, and we need to have our common understanding with all the participants in financial market situation, including the banks. So together we'll accomplish the bright future. Thank you. Thank you, Svetlana. You don't believe that Constitutional Court will make ineffective the law on Deposit Guarantee Fund? You are a journalist or what? I believe that Constitutional Court will adopt the right decision, and I know that the law on Deposit Guarantee Fund, this is very important for stability of the banking system. I am optimistic, and I believe that everything will be good.
I would like to start a discussion with the question. The deliveries of the comprehensive program for 2020 was the share of the banks with the state ownership significantly grew. More than 54% of assets and 63% of the deposits are now in the state-owned banks, where the state ownership is. So what is stipulated by the strategy? How the regulators would operate? And this is the question to several regulators. So let me jump in. So for interference, but the increase of the state-owned banks and the banking system was not the outcome of the implementation of this strategy, but this is a consequence of the financial crisis overcome. For our understanding, because as a result of the exercises we have, so the dealing with the insolvent banks, so the nationalization of the private bank. So is it a direct broadcast or what? So someone is taping us or what? You see? This is a financial technologies, by the way. So the colleagues, we are going to talk about fintech. This is one of the something we need to refer to, development of the technology. So I would give the microphone to Oksana because we are partners here. But if we look at the other countries' experience which overcome the crisis of different in-depthness, we'll see that everywhere is an outcome of the interference of the state in order to secure financial stability. In many countries, the government share increased in the banking. This is not something unique. This is a normal process when the state tries to ensure financial stability to protect the population. What to do with that? It's not scary, the possession, the ownership, but the competitive environment and further development are most important. With the Ministry of Finance, I'm not going to talk about the strategy of state-owned bank. This is the territory of the owner, and we have the great owner next to me. We, as the regulator, did a lot in order not to let or to store or non-competitive financial mechanism in the public sector. This is what we did back in 2015 for every bank. We set up same requirements with no exception for state-owned bank. Of course, the banks, state-owned bank operated with some exclusive circumstances. There was a difficult time, so we had some discussion how to move to the market operation. But we are now there. The banks, some of them are the leaders, the market makers at the market. We see how they operate now. This is the most important, what the regulator did to promote the operation of the own. Of course, there's a strategy. Now, microphone is yours, Oksana. Thank you very much. As a representative of the owner, a couple of theses on state-owned banks. The first one, that full ownership, we have 4 banks. 2 banks, SIM and the SHAT, were created by the state, and 2 of them were privatized, Ukrgaz and Privat. Going back to the previous strategy, we had more banks, Radovid, Kiev Bank, and as implementation of the previous strategy, Obera was sold to the Chinese company. Земельный Bank was closed. Radovid was closed. It had to be liquidated many years ago. And Kiev Bank was merged, and that was a very difficult but successful project. It was merged to Ukrgaz Bank. And the problem loans in that bank were cleaned very fast. Ukrgaz Bank has the lowest NPL portfolio from the state-owned bank. The second thesis would be that this is not the mode of predominate in this sector. This is something we were forced to do, to go for nationalization of the bank, to have it in our portfolio. Our approach is very simple. Whatever was taken to the market, the role of the state to stabilize, to fix the process, and privatize, get back it to the market. So in our current strategy, banking strategy, it's stipulated there that we partially leave basically every state-owned bank except Exim. This is under discussion. Ukrgaz and Privat full exit strategy. We update the strategy, and respectfully to our joint strategy, it would be even more ambitious. The third thesis, probably the most important, how they should operate. Katerina mentioned from the regulator's perspective, there should not be any preferences to state-owned bank, state-owned companies. They should not be special players at the market, but they should govern well. Corporate governance is our priority, and every state-owned bank this year had a supervisory board they're tuning corporate governance, which is a match with the best practice. The strategy is another issue. What the banks are doing, where they invest, whether they cooperate among themselves with state being an owner, whether they run the policy which is very efficient for them and for the shareholder to increase their commercial attractiveness. So actually, state-owned banking, we have a lot task in our strategy for state-owned bank. On some of them, where the Ukrgaz Bank, we're at the final stage with IFC, which I hope would become our co-owner, and with them jointly we'll look at final owner for this bank with good reputation, and then we'll move on this strategy to achieve more efficiency, more profitability, and better governance, and the reduction of the state ownership in the banking sector. Thank you, Oksana. Actually, there was a specific question from the audience when the state-owned banks would be sold. This is actually like we keep talking about the investments, and I see lots of interesting questions coming from the audience. Everybody understands that after the crisis, we have the investors, the financial, different investors come in waves. The first comers are the financial investments into our securities, and we see that we have a huge progress on our allocation on euro bonds. We have the real money, we have more and more. We have the investors, strategic investors, which consider Ukraine not as making money for 1 year, but for coming for the long-term security. This is the first wave. If these investors are interested in Ukraine and the reports the financial analysts have published, our ratings increase, we see the second wave, and we see it now. Venture funds, private equity funds, those financial, it's not and probably the most stable direct investments which we're fighting for this, come with the third wave, when they have the evidence of our growth, the evidence of the rule of law and the protection of the investors' rights. Then those investors, we see the increase of those, but they're not the way in the amount we see. The investor for the strategic banking sector, they're probably from this third category are the most conservative, the most cautious. So we need to do a lot from the perspective of improvement of business environment, the protection of the creditors and shareholders' right, to have them another review of the situation at the market, with understand why we actively cooperate with our IFIs, and basically we agreed, and with the final stage with IFC and the investments to Ukrgaz Bank, because these financial investors who invest into the development are the best partners, on one hand, to develop the banks, on the other hand, to demonstrate to other strategic investors that it's possible to invest into such institutions. So presence of international financial institute, EBRD in a shared bank, we hope to accelerate this cooperation. It gives us an opportunity to sell our banks faster. So to reduce the share is on the agenda. We want to make it fast, but you need two for a dance. So to sell someone, you need to buy this. Thank you. Now I have a question which probably Katerina is expecting. The nationalization of the private bank. So a lot of people have this question in mind. Do you think that the strategy which is approved would be broken if the courts decide to nationalize the bank? I appreciate Svetlana's hint how to read. I believe in the wisdom of our judges. I haven't started my presentation interference yet. You started to laugh. But being serious, we're here in front of you on that stage, and actually, we're not presenting this strategy because it's huge for the time allocated for every panelist. But we speak about the principles and where we're here because we are one team, and I'm absolutely sure. I believe in justice. Secondly, I believe that we as a team would be able to control the situation in any case. But I believe in fair justice. It would not prevent us to implement this strategy. Moreover, in the future will do everything to prepare Privat to bring it to the stage financial economic condition when it would be interesting for the investors and the state would be able to leave the bank. So everything would remain calm. The situation is under control. Yeah. Svetlana, the question to you. 200,000 hryvnias, the guaranteed amount, it remained unchanged, though the hryvnia rate changed. Yeah, I think it did not change, and as of the amount and the date, it was 25,000 US dollars equivalent. We should not measure it in US dollar equivalent, but we think that the savings of the citizens, so dollars being the benchmark, about $6,000 up to $7,000, which is significantly less. In my initial message, we keep your directives in mind, European standard. And per European standards, this guaranteed amount, 100,000 euros. And there were lots of speculations in our media that the fund promised 100,000 euros as a guaranteed amount. No. Why European Union because they have early warning, financial capacity of the fund, the proactive supervision, risk awareness. They work so well tuned and successful that probably for the past 25 years they don't have that many cases that those 100,000 euros were paid. So for us, this star in the sky or the light at the end of the tunnel, of course we have that amount in mind, but for the nearest future, the realistic future, so any increase of the guaranteed amount would be possible only with the financial capacity and a strong fund without the debts we have. So the priority number one, and this is articulated under our strategy for the upcoming year, restructuring of the debt. The priority number two, development of the early warning system, and basically the diagnostics, which the financial sector would be ready for that guaranteed increased amount, and GDP for the different criteria to measure 60 to 6 to 700,000. So in theory, Ukraine is almost ready, but financial stability of the fund, and secondly, the banking system prerequisite, not financial stability, the resilient and capable financial system of Ukraine. Thank you. Next question I have for Timur. The strategy stipulates a lot that institutional, the capital market does not have institutional capacity for the development. At the same time, we see that the market has current blockchain technologies and the circulation of the security. Whether we need all this, whether innovative development would just let it go and develop the tools themselves, thanks to modern technologies, thanks to ICOs, cryptocurrencies. So I see that you believe that there is a magic pill, that someone from us remains in the cell. Yes, these are technologies, blockchain or other things, powerful modern technological solutions. Of course, there are certain destructive streams which change the financial market. And of course, this is the fact, and Ukraine is also a part of this process. But whether we would be proactive or whether we would exclude human relationship from the market, responsibility, accountability for the investors, creditors, for the depositors, for you, sometime you, yourself, your project, every law, remember that? Every principle, when you take someone's money, you promise to return it through insurance or deposit. So, but this is a matter of time. When you return the money, would not depend from the magic technology. It would depend because there is a human being responsible for all work. Technology may help, but in case we put those principles apply in the legislation, if we don't have solid legislation, we would not have a financial market, a solid financial. This is what we keep saying for 4 years already. The ratio of the introduction of the strategy 2020 into legislation, so we have only 20% there. That's it. We won't be able to make our financial market. Whether we have plan B, I have a question here on the screen.
And this is pretty a long-term period. And global economy is growing, but the global economy can go down. We have the only option to be rich and happy. And how to become rich? Only when we develop our own market faster than others, and we'll have speedy development. This is not about technologies, but technology is allowing us to have these speedy steps. And this is true. And I like the phrase, we are taking a backseat, but we can move forward. And technology, distributed ledger, and decentralized system, yeah. We are following this development, and we understand that magic pill is not there, but we are going to utilize it to make sure that we can move forward than others and faster than others. I think this is Ukraine is having pretty strong technological sector, and we have to utilize whatever is available. Thank you, Timur. And one more question. There were a couple of questions about insurance market. Maybe Dennis will provide comments, and National Bank will. The people are concerned that because supervision with respect to insurance companies, and there will be changes in this, so the bankruptcies within insurance sector will happen a lot. It depends what kind of market will be. Those people who are working in the normal way, definitely they will continue this development and everything is going to be cool. And so I would like to tell you that we need to be positive about it. And in 5 years, I managed to understand one thing, that market pretty quickly responds to the dialogue that is offered by the regulatory body. In case we are uh, helping to develop in the right direction, the market responds and tries to respond in the same direction. So we are solvent, we are competitive, we have enough funds with respect to our future obligations, and everything is going to be okay. And National Bank is not against this kind of strategy. Absolutely, I'm supporting this, and really, we have very positive attitude, and we are in a good mood. We want to talk about that today. It's the right time and the possibilities for faster development of Ukraine and faster development of Ukrainian economy. And we are very happy about it. We were creating these conditions together with you, actually. And we can talk about other things. Yesterday we were talking to the banking people, and 1 week ago with insurance company with respect to full-fledged rehabilitation of mortgage loans. This is time when the real wages are increasing and we are working within macro financial stability and thank you to the banks that have reduced their deposit rates, and this helped to reduce the interest rate when we are talking about loans. And this is about banking sector and insurance companies. And one more thing, we were talking to insurance companies about supporting exportation and importation transactions. And this is our current account, and this is very important. And this means that we are getting more proceeds and more money to more revenues to the budget. And again, we have to talk about it because transparent banking sector managed to make sure that corporate sector should be more transparent and structuring of the contracts should be more transparent, and insurance companies are ready to deal with this. We have to do even more, but we have pretty good conditions. Let's do this work. We shouldn't waste any time. And now we have ideal conditions. Those who will start it first will benefit from it. We were not talking about prospects, about non-bank financial sector. So market is huge. And definitely there is a need to have financial services and there is demand. But banks should have more sophisticated products like mortgage, importation, exportation transactions. And non-bank financial institutions will find their own niche, and everybody will have enough time and will have financial inclusion. And we are interested. Now, what audience is interested about? And the audience is interested how to make sure to get rid of shadow economy, cashless. And smart people say, don't try to rebuild the system. Just create new conditions that old system won't be able to operate. And Ministry of Finance is doing their own job, and we are doing our own to create conditions to make sure that non-cash transactions will be beneficial, will be cheaper. So it will accomplish cashless economy. This is not automatic, but this is direct road to get rid of shadow economy. This is our strategy when we'll have cashless transactions and we'll get rid of shadow economy. Let's work hard. Thank you. Svetlana, in your fund, have you looked at the opportunities that insurance companies are part of deposit guarantee fund system? Or maybe it was not part of your review. This is global practice. It's better to look what smart people are doing. So the global practice such to guarantee financial companies to make sure that we are protecting from insolvency, but we have to do a lot of homework to incorporate all financial companies to make them part of deposit guarantee fund. This is not possible to be done immediately, but we are trying to accomplish European directive standards. That's the right direction. The most popular questions that we are getting here, warranties, when Ministry of Finance have issued, and what kind of, when we are talking about 5% growth of the economy, that Ukraine is supposed to pay more when we are talking about foreign debt. This is the question about professional discussion. This is the issue that is, triggers are not yet there. From the standpoint of Ministry of Finance and our team that deals with debt management, we analyze carefully all the tools, including potential tools. These tools are not part of our debt, and triggers are not yet there. Not happening. Thank you. With respect to non-performing loans, what kind of plans you have as part of your strategy? For many years, this issue is under discussion. Unfortunately, no drastic changes are happening, or it happens very slowly. What we envisage in the strategy about NPL, the changes are happening. First of all, let's put it this way. The private banking sector practically managed to overcome this problem, and we don't see any serious threats there. But still there are some cases. There is a government-owned banking sector, and non-performing loans are still the problem. So there is some progress already. Lots of work have been done by Oshad Bank and Exim Bank to restructure substantial non-performing loans in the portfolio. And in the reports, it's not happening that fast. That non-performing loans are becoming better loans. No, it takes some time. And the borrower should demonstrate that they are servicing debts, and substantial part of the debts are restructured. Substantial part of the debts are restructured, and especially Ashad Bank is having lots of expert knowledge in this field. And still there are substantial number of non-performing loans. I just wanted to remind you this non-performing loan portfolio. This is legacy portfolio. This is something that was created before 2014 because new loans within banking sector, including government-owned banks, are much better quality, sometimes even excellent quality loans. And we need to remember this. What we have to do, what is specified in our strategy, what we have. We are not writing off. We are drawing conclusion on the basis of statistics. When we analyze portfolio and some cases, in some cases, no way uh, some loans will be repaid. And global practice is such. You have to write it off from your balance sheet. That's it. But these loans are still part of the provisions of the bank. These losses are already everybody understands that this is losses, but this actually distorts the whole criteria. And some objects are in annexed Crimea or in the occupied territories. And there are bankrupt entities, and there is nothing to get from there. The central bank, in case the World Bank will hear this, they'll be happy about it. We are going to amend our legislation and regulations to recommend the banks to write this off. Because statistics is something that you have to be very careful while reading it. The other part that can be restructured, we still are working hard on this. I was told to finalize my speech. We are helping banks to analyze different options of restructuring, to choose the best option. And there are independent supervisory boards, and this helps to figure out situation with non-performing loans. There are tools, we can see it. We have to finalize regulations of the National Bank, and pretty soon the results will be pretty good and positive. Thank you. Really, it's time for us to finalize this part. And the question that I've been asked a lot, what is the exchange rate that have been used for budget declaration? Probably to me, you are hinting. Budget declaration haven't been finalized. In May, it will be discussed in the Ministry of Finance and the Cabinet of Ministers, but one of the stages in developing this document to approve the macro forecast. Ministry of Economy that is responsible for this, coordinating this activity with the National Bank. These are analytical centers about macro forecast, and Ministry of Finance is not taking part in it. It's made by design this way, because we are in the Ministry of Finance just consumers of this macro forecast. We were expecting update of the forecast, and then we will figure out the impact with respect to budget indicators, and the budget declaration for 2023 will be based on the forecast. And our 3-year budget declaration is approved, but we have rolling budget that is adopted on the basis of the declaration. And definitely we can see the exchange rate that is different from previous macro forecast. The exchange rate is impacting our revenues when we are getting in hard currency, but there is a positive impact as well. But not only foreign exchange rate is impacting the budget, because this macro forecast incorporates lots of indicators. What kind of exchange rate we are, it's too premature to talk about it, and we'll discuss it. Thank you, Oksana. And now we have to summarize our discussion, and we have asked participants two questions. Let's have a look how the audience have responded to this. What are the challenges to Ukrainian economy? What do you think the most important? And definitely lack of rule of law. This is the main challenge that we have to face in 2020. And what will motivate loans? The reform of judiciary system and bailiff system. And second is transparency and solvency of the borrowers. So nobody is shocked about this voting. Nobody is surprised. I just wanted to thank all the participants. I hope that all these questions were interesting, and lots of work have to be done by regulatory bodies. And you can see that the regulatory bodies, they have understanding and they are coordinating their activities and they are helping each other, and accordingly the strategy will be implemented by 2025. Thank you.
Thank you for an interesting discussion to the panelists and every guest who are there. This meeting is not the only opportunity to talk to the regulator. We're open for a dialogue. Now I would like the panelists to take their seats back in the room, and I'd like to thank our reliable partner, USAID Mission in Ukraine, Belarus, for the support in the organization of this event and for the support in providing assistance to the financial sector in recent past. So I invite the director of the USAID Mission in Ukraine and Belarus, Susan Fritz.
Good afternoon, Governor Smoley and distinguished guests. Thank you for inviting me to offer closing remarks at this event outlining Ukraine's financial sector strategy through 2025. It is great that all of the major financial sector actors are here in full support of the accelerated development of Ukraine's financial markets. Setting goals and expectations is important, and I congratulate all those who invested their time and energy and resources in formulating this strategy. The next step is to clearly communicate the strategy to the different audiences, including the RADA, financial markets and consumers, as well as the press. Fortunately, Governor Smoley and the NBU have emphasized clear, concise communication, openness, and transparency more than ever before, and this is hugely critical. The role of the central bank is to send the right signals to the market, regulating monetary policy, inflation, and exchange rates. It needs the public and the markets to clearly understand the messages it sends and to act accordingly in support of economic growth. A strong, professional, politically independent central bank is vitally important for Ukraine. It was respect for and adherence to the principle of independence that allowed the NBU to recently clean up the banking sector and set it on a path towards responsible lending. Its political independence remains essential for trust and confidence in Ukraine's financial system. An independent NBU is synonymous with a well-run economy. Donors and international institutions need to know that our financial assistance dollars are well spent and that we can move forward with confidence that our economic growth initiatives are sustainable and will have a lasting impact. We are pleased to see continued support and engagement by the NBU senior leadership in the various ongoing donor activities intended to further strengthen the work of Ukraine's central bank. 6 months ago, I was honored to share the stage with Governor Smoley to open the Ukrainian Financial Inclusion Forum. The NBU presented a national financial literacy strategy aimed at opening access to finance for more Ukrainians, developing more responsible borrowers and lenders, and protecting the rights of consumers of financial services. I am pleased to see these initiatives reflected in the 2025 strategy. We are also pleased to see that the 2025 strategy includes regulatory and policy steps required to reform the non-bank financial sector. This sector needs to grow in a responsible and effective manner so that ordinary Ukrainian consumers can save and invest in their retirement, insure themselves and their property, and to finance their own businesses. Financial sector reform is essential to Ukraine's economic growth and crucial to achieving anti-corruption objectives. We are encouraged that Ukraine has taken the bold step to plot a course to real and lasting reform. Thank you, Dusha Diakuyu.
So, Ms. Partnership.
Fritz, on behalf of the staff of the National Bank, I would like to thank USAID Mission, USAID, for a great partnership for more than 25 years, which we get. We really appreciate our cooperation. We know that we have a reliable partner whom we can count on. And special thanks for the organization of the third annual conference with our stakeholders. I would like to acknowledge that each time it becomes more and more productive and a bigger scale. And addressing the owners, dear colleagues, dear guests, I really appreciate your active engagement and open dialogue we have. The importance of this interaction is confirmed by the fact that the presence here of full room, which I really appreciate. We would continue this standard of communication and transparency with every stakeholder, with every partner. I thank you for your attention and keep talking to you in the future. Let's continue this dialogue. Thank you. Dear guests, this is the end of our annual meeting. Thank you for staying with us, for being with us this January morning. The materials are available in soft copies in Ukrainian and English, and they're available on QR code on your benches. Now we'd like to invite the guests for the coffee break to continue personal discussions. Dear media, we invite to the press hall for the briefing with NBU board. On behalf of NBU and the partners, USAID,